don't, I don't hold it anymore. Get your hips and teach me how quick Timmy or Maria. Shortstop, I'll pick you up. Now that I got me when you pick me up, I'm this goes like a saw, Grand Matchstick, Dr. Cows, Robot, Sally, Station. Okay, so what I'm doing today, guys, I am just gonna run around and assassinate everybody like I usually do. Perfect. Okay. Candy Carnation in the pack, could be the Grand, Demi the Great, Peppy the Clown, Ruby and Crooks, Phantom Express, Get the Maria, and also Leo's holding the room. Captain Pennybeard, he signed a contract. Yeah, these Cuphead, fragile, empty-headed, artful dodger, tricked by easy riches, no big and famous monsters. 8 times my size. Oh snap! At least this doesn't include online. The PSN networks are down for now. I'm gonna play some Destiny 2, but I guess not. So let's start off by assassinating these two guys. Well, hello there. I just wanted to tell you. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, let's go. Ouch. Okay, one hit, I get offense. You lose, I win, ha 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 ha. What's that? Na 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 Alrighty, dude. Yeah? Be right there. Hold up, guys. Be right back. Dad just showed me something from World War II, which was sad. I'm sorry. Need help? Yeah, I'll give you some good help, right? What are you getting ready for?
I gotta talk to these people about this. That's why your grandfather did so good, though. You know, he came from a hard living. He grew up working in fields, plowing, heat all day, hard worker. And he worked out in fields, and he was used to being hurt and sore and hot and miserable. So when he went there, it made it easier for him to focus on what was ahead because he had already been living a tough life. He didn't have, to him it wasn't like that. But,
well, they don't need to bring
when you're 17 years old, you're able to die for your country. But that's why it's important for people. You might look at politics as boring, but son, they determine your life and your kids' life. Because it might not be you that never sees war, just like me. I never got drafted because I never seen that kind of war. But you might be in the mix when that happens like that. Or if it's not you, it might be your son that goes in. Now imagine having your son leaving out of your hands and know that that's what he's going to be walking into. So you can either get involved and be a part of it and solving it, or you can let your government try to run everything and then you and your kids dying because of them not being able to get along. Or over money or food or oil or whatever the case is. Whenever we could have worked it out like men, but you got some people that just don't care because they're not the ones in harm's way. But what was going on over there needed to be stopped. That was for a good cause because you had God's people getting slaughtered, marched into death camps, and killed. Not only that, Germany was on the march basically, killing about everything they could come across. But it touches me because Daddy watched that old man hurt every day of his life for our freedom. He tried, at least. And I watched him limp. I watch him every morning have to put pain medicine on. I watched him, get mad and angry at the TV because of politics. He would watch it, and now I see why he watched it. Why do you think he watched it like he did? Because he knew that's what.
Oh, that was well, my answer wasn't that. My answer was probably not correct anyways.
He watched it not because he was wanting to, yell and stuff, but he knew the cost of not being involved. He knew the cost of what comes if you don't stay involved. So to him, it became worth it to pay attention and stuff, and that's why he would get so mad. It wasn't just that too, but his benefits and stuff like that from him being disabled. He couldn't work like a normal man because his leg was blown off in the war, but he still had his leg, but most of the muscle was blown off with it, so he couldn't really walk that good. And one day maybe you'll understand more. You get a little bit older. When I was young, I thought, man, it's cool. I seen the glory of it. You seen all the bullets flying. But until you realize it could be your son, or it could have been your life or whatever, and you see what people sacrifice to give you the good life, then you realize, like, man, I want to do better because I don't want them to die in vain, It's just like God. You don't want him to die in vain of everything he did for us. So you try to live a good life and do what's right. But it's the same thing with your grandfather. He was willing to throw his life down for people he didn't even know, trying to save and do what was right. You asked him about it, he said, it was just the right thing to do. It's kind of crazy.
Well, did his leg actually get blown off physically?
It didn't get blown off physically, but what happened to him, he was such a big guy. that and he obviously was tough, man. I mean, he's just super tough. But German came into the tent and tried to kill him. He killed the guy next to him, and then went to go kill your grandfather. And he went up in there with his knife like this and was about to come down with a big long knife, and your grandfather put his hand up, and luckily it went right through his wrist. Your grandfather, well, went right between these two bones. So your grandfather, big as he was, just snatched down and grabbed the guy because he didn't know what else to do. He grabbed him, right? But they're fighting. He pulls the knife out of his wrist and stabs him and kills the guy. Well, he's a machine gunner. He comes up with the machine gun, looks, he's expecting, he didn't know what was going on. He heard all the commotion, then he steps up, he looks, and he said he kind of just sat there staring for a second. He said they all looked at each other. He said it was like a whole, little band of Germans that had found their little camp and was going into each one and stabbing and killing everybody. And he said he looked up and he had his machine gun in his hand. They had their machine guns in their hands, and he just said, and started laying down fire and just trying to kill as many of them as he could, and he figured that was it. He said, well, they kind of panicked. They weren't expecting him to come up like he did, and they had no clue. Well, before they could even fire, he said he heard boom. He said that's about all he remembered, And he said that when he came to, he was on an operating table, and he grabbed a nurse. He said, what's happening? She said, well, we're going to have to amputate your leg. And Grandpa by that time had done a lot of, killing, done a lot of bad things. And he killed, and even I asked him later in life, I said, Grandpa, did you ever kill any kids? And he said, yeah, son, fortunately I did. So I'm sure that was going through his mind, and that's probably why he said what he said to the nurse. But he told her, he said, you don't let them cut my leg off. He said, if anything, he said, I'll go into hell whole. That's a pretty strong statement, because he knew he was a Christian man, and he had been, killing for his country, but he'd been doing what he was told. He didn't really feel like it was right what he had done a lot of times, but it was what he had to do. And so I'm sure a lot of that was the reason why he said what he said, because he knew that if he died, he didn't feel like he was going to go to heaven because of all the things he had to do for his country. And so he said, what he said is, he said, you'd let you keep my leg on. He said, you make a promise to me that you make them leave my leg. You don't cut my leg off. He said, I don't care if it kills me. Because he knew that he had to come back and be a farmer. And he couldn't become a farmer with his leg gone. And she said, she made a promise to him. And so it's exactly what she done. She told the doctor she fought and argued and fussed and made a big deal out of it. The doctor said fine. So he took the metal when it exploded from the shell. You remember going to that museum? Did you look at those shells that had exploded and they were all just shrapnel pieces of metal? One of those big flat pieces come flying at your grandfather's leg and was blistering hot. So hot that the metal was still able to shake. And it hit the back of your grandfather's leg and just wrapped and went inside the muscle and blew and shredded the muscle out the back. But the muscle stopped it, and along with the bone, stopped the shell from traveling, but it wrapped around your grandfather's bone and leg and muscle and everything. So they tried to clean all that up, cut off all they could to clean that cut out, and then they left the metal because they were going to have to cut off his leg if they didn't. So they had to leave some of the metal to his leg, and his bone had basically been broken, sort of. So they had to clean all that out and put it together with that metal still wrapped around it, with everything going down between it. So he got up, he still got his leg. When he died, he had two things in his wallet. One was my picture, and the other one was that lady's picture that saved his leg. That's how much it meant to him to save his leg, because he knew that he couldn't work when he came home if he didn't have a leg. And what good would he be then? He'd be on the street corner begging. Your great-grandfather came from very humble and poor beginnings. His family wasn't the top like ours. They had to make bills by growing crops and stuff like that and working hard. So he knew he couldn't make a living like that. Well, he got back, and luckily the military started a thing where they were taking care of the people that got hurt. So if you got hurt in the war, they would give you a small check every month to kind of help you get you along and stuff like that. And he got that the rest of his life. But since Minnie couldn't work, he got a little bit more. He got 100% disabled. Your grandfather, cool thing about that too, your great-grandfather was one of the first ones to get an automatic car. One of the first people to get an automatic car, a real one that actually switched the gears and stuff. And the Army gave it to him because your grandfather was known to be a good man and respectable, and people liked him because of his integrity and his honesty and stuff. He was a good guy for that. That's why it's important to carry yourself well. So. And anyway, so he was able to come home instead of having to go back to farming. He was able to relax, take it easy, kind of. He got a check from the military, like a lot of people do now. But back then it was almost, you didn't get stuff like that very much. But since he gave so much, they gave it to him. Yeah, I couldn't imagine the crap that old man went through.
So he was the first one?
One of the first ones to get an automatic car.
That's cool. Do you still have it?
No, I wish, man. The thing'd be worth some money. And to do that kind of stuff that he had done, though, son, it took a special generation to kind of go through that. Not everybody can, do that kind of stuff. And it seems like, you play these games and you play them and you go up the beach, and if you die, you just get to respawn. In real life, it's not that. What makes it worse is if you got a kid and you got to come back. You got to think about coming home. A lot of them didn't return home to see their kids, their wives, their girlfriends, their mom, the dads. Parents never got to get the body either. America, the most powerful nation in the world at one time, could have took over the whole world and ruled it. But instead, the only land they ever took from another country was to bury the dead they couldn't bring home in time. So when you go to France, there's a graveyard there that's got our American troops in it, and it says, for the people here gave, or whatever, for their freedom, Americans died to give their freedom. That's why when a French man talks about America, that's why you'll probably see Daddy get so mad. And that's why Daddy stays on those forums talking to people, because I'm patriotic with my country. I believe in my country, and I believe the people here, there's still a lot of good. But we're slowly letting politicians sell out those people. And those people that died and fought and bled and the misery that all those years of fighting for our freedom, now it is being sold away. It's being handed away to people in power, and it don't belong to them. It belongs to the people here that sacrificed. It was their families that gave, not their families. There's some of those families that have given. They put their kids in prominent positions, and they still got touched, and they still died, and they felt what we felt, but it's very rare. So you got to be really careful who you hand power to. That's why it's important to vote. That's why it's important to get out and let your voice be heard. Tell people about it. If you don't, and all you're doing is selling yourself and your kids and your grandkids and your grandkids' kids and everybody else short. And the reason why Daddy gets so emotional about it, Daddy ain't really an emotional kind of guy. There's a couple things that move me. My family, God, and America, like the patriotism and stuff like that, because there's people that felt like me, felt like a lot of us, and that tried to do their best, but especially my family. And your grandfather, and my love, he was like my dad, basically. I watched him hurt, and I watched him suffer, and stuff like that for things he believed in, buddy. And that's what it makes me emotional when I watch stuff like that. I think about him being there and what he was thinking, how scared he must have been, because that's, I mean, he was probably terrified. I mean, that's why if I want, if you went into the military, that's why I'd say go into the Air Force, because they rarely see that kind of action. I mean, Air Force, there's more support measures and stuff like that, and people treat you better if you get caught and stuff. I mean, you get 4 years of school, you can go in as an officer, and then you don't even have to worry about it. And then if you're good officer, and you really try hard, then you can go up the ranks and become even higher and higher to a point where you're over everyone. But those people, you got to shine whenever you're in that position, and sometimes people do. You got to meet the right people too. Is where I sit now.
Make me a radio.
Fit in there.
Turn me up when you feel low. Let it be what meant for you. Sing along to stereo. Oh, dude, that was a 3 lock. Just for a dumb chest too.
Down by the sea, on the blanket.
Make me a radio. Turn me up when you feel low. Let it be what for you. Sing along to the stereo. Oh, to the stereo. I have
You
cough.
need to put on some pants because if they're not back now, you might run with me. Down by the sea, on a blanket with my baby is where I'll be. Now, of the sun.
Want to hear the bad news or bad news?
Throw them in the dryer. Let them iron themselves out.
Then press start.
Yep, hold it down.
Okay,
A blanket with my baby is where I. And that's like kids nowadays.
Yes.
They talk about our country bad. They say this is wrong. They say that's wrong, and they go on and on and on trying to make it look bad. But son, if you don't believe in America and all that stuff, and go to a country you do believe in and fight for them, because if this place ever got invaded, half of the people now wouldn't even die for their country. They'd be cowards or scared or whatever the case is. Because they don't even understand. They don't even know what they're giving up. They think, oh, it ain't so bad, you know. But it is. And once they got you, they got you. You know, you can't. America used to be the beacon of freedom. Now there's other countries more free than we are. And the more powerful we get, the more people have wanted a piece of it. And to keep everybody tolerable and keep friends, America's had to sell its soul a little bit at a time to people. And that's where you don't compromise. There is none. America first, always.